Hey everybody, this is Dominic D'Angelo of WrestleZone.com. Almost at the end of this year, but a good way to kind of cap it off for us at WrestleZone in a certain roundabouts is having none other than the enforcer, Arn Anderson, with us today. Arn, thanks for joining me, man.
Oh, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So kind of neat what ad-free shows are doing now. You have, obviously you've been doing the Arn show, and it's one of my favorite ones that Conrad does, because it's like you're getting so much insight. You've been, in the business for so long and so many different facets of it. And so getting to hear the audio, but now there's also on ad-free shows the video component that's going with it too. And people get to interact or see like this almost going on. From your perspective, I wanted to start off with this. Like, you're somebody that's used to doing all different types of on-air stuff. So whether it's, in the ring, in front of a live crowd, or at a studio, like for studio wrestling or anything like that, in the studio environment, like more intimate setting. But this, like doing it, how has this been? Has this been more difficult for you, or is this like kind of easier now that you're kind of done everything else around it?
Well, it's the part that I've always enjoyed are give me a microphone, let me talk about a subject, and try to put some meat on the bone where that's concerned. It has been very difficult, and I think everyone involved in the industry will tell you the single biggest asset we have are the fans. And not having the fans there and not being able to play off of, their energy and their reactions, it's been tough. And recording that show that we do with the few people that we have on the outside has made a difference. Thank God. And I know that translates at home. Even having 20 voices when that's all we were allowed to have, and those guys being energetic and girls being energetic, and everything has helped, the product, I think.
Absolutely. It really has. And I think something was a great testament to that this past Wednesday was Sting coming out and just him having that presence that he's had, even like, back in the 90s and even farther back then. I think he's such an expert almost at conveying himself, being silent and having that just body language and presence. And I think that the crowd reaction, it was good to have a crowd there, especially for a moment like that. But I think knowing what you're doing in that kind of regards, talk about like I think a lot of people can kind of just wait to see what will happen with Sting developing in AEW, which is going to be fascinating. But just speak to that, having that body presence in the ring and being able to convey yourself, whether it's through words or through just the body language that you can convey.
One of the most important things in our business, and it's something that the young guys, one of the last things that they pick up are the nuances. What you do between the physicality and how you let me know that you're hurt or you're excited or you're disappointed. All those things are so important. And the best nuance that Sting has mastered is the ability to do nothing. Walk around the ring with that baseball bat, flat line for an expression, and just stare, because he's capable of exploding at any moment. Less is more. And I tell you, I'm not sure how many people we had that night, but I was down on the mat, obviously, after getting knocked on my can. And all I had to do was listen. And that's what I did. And it was the reaction. I mean, it was disbelief. It was one of those moments on a show that if you'd have wrote down, okay, tonight we're going to have a surprise guest, give me your top 5 picks, Sting would not have made that list, I don't think, just because it's iconic.
Right.
And you hadn't heard a word about it. It did not get out. No one knew. We didn't know. The talent, and that just made it so cool. And there's so few surprises anymore because of social media. And I feel bad again for the fans like you and I that like surprises on a show. That's what we work for, is entertaining the audience. And that was one that was huge. And you could just, when I looked at Sting in the ring, I mean, it took me back 30 years.
I bet.
It was a great moment for me. I was in awe of the whole scenario.
Yeah. Something that was cool too is you got a little physical too in there. How did it feel kind of getting back into that mode, especially too in such a monumental moment? Because I talked to my brother about this too, and we were talking like wrestling has for so long, it seems, it's just been missing that, like, where were you when you saw this? And I really felt that this Wednesday was one of those moments where it was like, I'm going to remember this. I'm going to remember this like the Jericho appearance in WWE. I'm going to remember this like where I was like when just when The Rock faced down with Hogan, anything like that. Or you have, I think this really was a keystone moment for AEW in a lot of ways. Moving forward, how did it feel to be a part of that moment and kind of get back physical with it too?
Well, I figured after waffling Will Hobbs about 6 times in the back that I had made a huge mistake. He is one large, solid individual.
Yes.
And I am not 25 anymore. I probably should have kept myself on the floor, but you still, the in-ring stuff is, the wrestling is what I always aspired to do, and bits and pieces here and there. It feels good to get in there and do just a little bit. I don't want to make a fool out of myself. I cannot compete with those young kids, nor am I going to try, but I might slip in there every occasionally and get excited and try to slip one in on them. We'll see.
You know what? I think you pick your moments very well, because here and there you'll come in, do a little spine buster, get a little physical. But like you just said, it's like leaving the fans with what they want. And those little moments, the little details are so important. So
I'm full of little moments these days. No big ones, just a bunch
no big one, just here and there. Let's just do some little ones.
Right.
Yeah. You spoke about Will Hobbs, and he's somebody too that like a lot of the newer fans or fans even just in general, like aren't too aware of right yet. But I think he's conveying such a strong presence too, like, as we mentioned. And something that I also thought was neat about that segment was those younger stars, keeping them on the same level as like legacy talent such as you and Sting. Like that moment with Darby Allin staring off with Sting, some people like would imagine like, oh, a younger star would be in awe of that, where Darby, I thought he kept himself on that level of intensity, and like you could see that moment. And I think I wanted to ask it in this way to you. Was there somebody when you were younger and coming up and like trying to, cut your teeth, so to speak, was there like a legacy talent that you got in there that you were like, I'm kind of feeling this moment of like, this is kind of my moment of not only getting a rub, but kind of like my moment to kind of make the most of it? Was there a certain talent that back in the day, I know like obviously people will say like, Flair and things, but your colleagues, I feel. So it's like, is there like an older talent that might have done that for you?
Well, obviously, the first time Arn Anderson and myself, got to team, was thrilling. Dick Slater and Bob Orton Jr. were the two wrestlers that when I was a teenager that made me want to be a wrestler. I was a huge fan of Dick Slater. For whatever reason, his skills, his promo ability, just the way he carried himself, he was exciting to me. Bob Orton Jr., same thing. They made a phenomenal team. And the first time I wrestled Dick Slater, of course, was a thrill in my life. It was like a disbelief moment. For me, it was just the business in general. You could have put me in there with anybody in a wrestling ring, because from 8 years old, it's all I wanted to do. And there was never a moment in time where it varied, oh no, hey, I'd like to be a fireman or a policeman or a pro football player. It was wrestling. And so every chance I got to step through those ropes was an honor and a privilege and a thrill, to be quite honest with you. Right up till the very last time I stepped in there before I had to retire.
I could only imagine. And like, I think to the point of, moving to the next stage of wrestling career, like so many talents don't get the opportunity, but also so many talent, like the talents that do, I think can really make the most of it. And I think you've done a very good job as like a coach in AEW, like for Cody and everything like that as well. Talk about the dynamic of being the coach and what more. I think it's really a neat aspect of almost quote unquote being on the sidelines and like having your card and everything like that. And then getting angry with Cody when he does stuff and, certain things that you don't agree with, or maybe he goes against the game plan, so to speak. What more of a dynamic do you think you can bring to the coaching aspect of AEW from an on-screen perspective, I guess?
Well, it's a very real thing sometimes with Cody.
Mm-hmm.
With all of the experience that he has and is polished and is smart and the wrestling IQ that he has now and the business IQ that he gets caught up in the excitement of a match a lot of times and will do something that is not necessarily good for the way he's perceived, but the way the match goes soon after that. I've never been someone who thought when you had a guy down, you should take your foot off the pedal. Cody will sometimes take his foot off the pedal to do 3 ridiculous push-ups.
Yeah.
I can't even do 3 push-ups still. So that doesn't impress me.
Right.
And it's a pause that I have to call him on because long time ago when he first started with WWE, I was talking to Dusty and I made him a promise. I'll keep an eye on Dustin, Dustin was fine. He was already a veteran. I said, but I'll keep an eye on Cody and I'll make sure that I look after him and I will guide him, when I can. And I have kept that promise. And I think he still needs it. I think it's comforting to Cody to sometimes be able to take himself out of the game plan and get a different idea that he likes and goes, yeah, if this comes up, we'll try that. We all need help in this business. If you ever think that you stop learning because you got it, you know it all, you better go take your boots, throw them in a fireplace and set them on fire because you're done. You never quit learning in this business. And that's for sure. And I think he takes not all, but some of my suggestions. And, he's always been very respectful as we come back to the curtain for chewing his backside out occasionally, but I didn't sign on to be a yes man. I didn't sign on to be a promoter of Cody Rhodes. I signed on to help the product and help them grow and help Cody where I could and just give a presence of, I've been around a long time. In 38 years, you run through different phases of the industry. I've been around for all of it, and I can offer an insight that very few people can. And not blowing smoke, I've just been there, seen that, done that, and I can lend that to Cody and the company itself.
Hell yeah. I think guys like you, guys like JR, and so many of I'm sure the agents backstage as well, and those presents too, like Tully, and like there's so many of those great minds that can be, that you can convey and give thoughts and know from experience of what it is, and always tip the hat to the history of the business. And, JR takes plenty of moments. Tony on commentary takes plenty of those moments too. And I think there's a lot of stuff that happens on AEW too, that plays nods to stuff that I being 35 years old and growing up in the 90s, stuff that I'm not even aware of that I'm like, oh, wow, that's, I go and have to go do research about it because it's, I think it's just, there's so much stuff you can choose from. Speaking to that too, Cody, from a business mind spec, of the industry mind spec, is there something certainly that stands out to you, like working with him for so long and knowing who he is, and then being able to, what is something that really stands out? Because I think being malleable, and like having that ability to like get reception and feedback is so vital, I think, in wrestling. And I think that's a strong point. But is there a certain other aspect of the business that Cody was really, really smart on that kind of like maybe made you surprised a little bit?
Well, I just, I'm in awe of how he's able to balance being a EVP of the company. And, people say he's the face of the company, and I think that puts a lot of heat on him with the fans, that he's getting too big a push. I don't think we all mean that he's the face of the company because he's the number one guy above everyone else and all that. It's just, if you have a question that involves backstage politics, he's got a clear head to discuss it with. Promotion of the company, going places that we've never been, talking about action figures and pay-per-views and quarter-hour numbers and demographics. He's the guy you can go to, and he'll clear it up for you. He's a company man in the aspect that he's helping this. We're just a little over a year old.
That's it, yeah.
And he volunteers to do every interview with every newspaper or every media outlet, to explain where we're going and what we're doing. And when you got a guy that's articulate and can, talk in terms that we all understand, the average Joe, that has so much value. And he carries himself with such grace and class, and he's just a good representative for AEW. And I think all those things, besides a very, very talented wrestler, he brings a lot to the table that, quite frankly, I can't put my finger on anybody else that can handle that many jobs and that many hats. And he's succeeding every day of his life.
And, I think what's really cool that I see from an outside perspective too, is his willingness to kind of go that extra edge at a lot of businesses or corporations that have this whole structure and hierarchy thing. They don't go outside the box. And I think Cody really exemplifies the ability to be professional, but to also be able to willing to go outside the box and interact and give feedback or his input to whether it's fans or different things like that through social media, through other aspects of it too. I find that extremely a big note to really take away from AEW and Cody, as a person too.
It doesn't bother me that he has a working knowledge of what today's product should be, but he has a loyalty to the golden years, back when wrestling was a different product, even before he was born, although he pays homage and respect to, all the past versions of the business before he was even born. And when they bring a legend, a Jake the Snake or myself or whoever it is, Taz, they bring them on board and use them in certain capacities, very respectful in what they do. And a lot of thought goes into how they involve that talent so that we're an asset to that younger talent from a knowledge perspective. And, sometimes, there's so many things that are right in front of your eyes, but the talent are so busy learning the business that they don't see. You can't see the trees for the forest, that old saying. And he wades right in there and helps the young guys with no jealousy or thought, hey, I'm grooming this guy to take my job. That never comes up. He's just, he's an all-around great representative for the company.
And, we were talking about sports off the air too here. And I think that's so imperative too with when you see a professional athlete. I'll use quarterbacks as an example where there's a veteran quarterback that's seeing going down his older years and everything like that. But there's a younger guy nipping at his heels. They have that. Some of them have that willingness to, hey, yeah, I'm going to help you out through this and move you forward because, it's for the betterment of the team and betterment of the company. And I think that's vital in all aspects. And I think it's a very neat aspect that Cody's willing to do for a lot of the younger talent right now too. So, fascinating stuff. I wanted to ask you about this and then we'll get to shaking here, but factions in general. You've been a part of obviously the Four Horsemen and now the Nightmare Family, and there's a lot of factions now in AEW. Can you speak to the importance of factions in wrestling from not only the on-air product, but just as almost a communal aspect too, that aspect of it?
Well, if your chemical makeup is one that has a couple of veterans, a couple of guys that have been around a minute and are started picking it up. And so you have that one rookie that everyone's high on and they think he has credible upside as far as possibilities. That makes for a good mix because the veterans can teach the guys that are there but haven't quite peaked yet, and they can all turn around and pass that knowledge for the guy that we all know is going to be a superstar. And I think with the injuries, and the injuries today are just like they've always been, but if not worse, when you have that high impact style, kudos to the talent for all the chances they take for, the fans. And that's who they're doing it for. They're really putting their bodies out there. When you get injured, it's great to have a couple of partners. Say you're in a 6-man that can cover for you, and you'll never even notice they're in, they're out, they're in, they're out. They don't do a whole lot, but it can be covered up by everyone else in the match. That's always a big asset to have. And when you do group like teams and factions and all these things, it gives you options as far as a bunch of different kind of matches that you can have, and intertwine talent. It just gives you a chance to make a lot of moves and have a bunch of different things other than just a straight one-on-one match.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I'll close it out with this. My favorite aspect of the Arn Show is your impression of Larry Zbyszko. And I listened back. I transcribed this one for the website, was him training the tits. And can you... when I wrote that headline too, I sent it to my editor and I was like, please let me leave training the tits in the headline. Like I wanted.
The time that we went to the gym, though, this is what I can never figure out. The times were spread out, the number of times we went to the gym together. If for some reason it didn't matter what day of the week it was, buys and tits. Larry, what are you training? Oh, Arn, let's do buys and tits. Okay, whatever that is, Larry, we'll do that.
Who would you say would Larry be a great manager for in AEW? Who would you pair him up with?
Oh, God. Well, anybody.
Yeah.
He's going to talk. He's going to get all the mic time. Then he is going to stand on the apron like a cigar store Indian and point his finger and bitch and get all the heat. Gotta love him.
Gotta love him.
And that's the thing. The thing I'll just tell you that drove me nuts is I saw Larry at his best. And when he was hitting on all cylinders, that guy could go.
Oh, yeah.
But when he was not in the mood and he was just holding that ring apron up, I would go, Larry, will you get in here and do something? Oh, they're chanting, Larry sucks. Larry, they mean it.
They mean it. Get moving. Get moving.
You suck. Do something.
Yeah. Well, geez, Arn, thanks so much for the time, man. Arn Show. What day does it drop? Do you know offhand what day it drops?
Tuesday at 6 a.m. And it's doing well. It's a steady build, and anything, including yourself, that you guys think we could do better, please let us know. It's a work in progress. Again, we've only been around a little over a year or two, so I'm trying to learn everything I can about doing podcasts, and any suggestions you guys have, please let us know.
I think what is really engaging is the dynamic between you and Conrad. And when I spoke to Conrad too, he was talking about like how you guys, like from Tony to everybody, he's got a lot to interact with those guys, but he hasn't gotten yet to go on the road with you and do stuff more so in a more that type of dynamic. And I'm just waiting for that moment because I'm curious where he's going to take you, like restaurant wise, and what would you eat if you say he's treating you to dinner, where would you have him take you if you're on the road?
Oh, Lord God. Uh, um, God, I don't know. You know, it would probably be a regional thing. If you're in Memphis, you know, let's get some barbecue.
Yes.
If you're out in Kansas City, man, let's get a big steak. You know, I would say just, you know, if we're in Florida, let's get some grilled seafood. Let's do whatever where we are dictates. And what makes you think I like to eat?
Oh no, I'm just a fan of eating myself. Like, you know what? I wanted to go. I went to Austin, and I was so pissed at myself because I did not go and get like Texas barbecue or anything like that when I was there. I was there for 2 days, and I didn't get Texas barbecue. So
Big mistake.
I know.
Brisket.
Brisket, I know. And, you know, that's why. So I'm living vicariously through people I interview. So that's why.
Well, I just try to, you know, I say where we're at, what area of the country, ask the locals, they'll guide you, you know, and let you know where to go.
Awesome. I know. I can't wait to get back to that. Time will tell. So thanks so much, Arn. This is Dominic D'Angelo from WrestleZone.com. And you can follow us at WrestleZone.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Dominic D'Angelo. And yeah, Arn, it's been an awesome pleasure, man.
Thanks, Dominic. Stay safe, okay?
Hey, thank you. You too.